Echoes of the Void. Commander Reyna Patel stood at the observation deck of the Earth Defense Station Artemis, her dark eyes fixed on the swirling anomaly that had appeared at the edge of the Kuiper Belt. The phenomenon defied conventional physics, a tear in spacetime that pulsed with an otherworldly energy. After 20 years of service in the United Earth Defense Force, she thought she'd seen everything. She was wrong. "Commander, we're detecting quantum signatures unlike anything in our database," Lieutenant James Morrison reported, his fingers dancing across the holographic display. "Whatever this is, it's not natural." Before Reyna could respond, the anomaly expanded, disgorging what appeared to be a vessel. Its hull gleamed with an iridescent sheen that reminded her of oil on water, organic yet clearly artificial. The ship's design defied conventional engineering principles, appearing almost coral-like in its structure. "Multiple life signs detected," announced Specialist Olivia Wu from her station. "But the readings are strange. As if they're both there and not there simultaneously." The alien vessel made no aggressive moves, instead maintaining its position just beyond Pluto's orbit. After 3 tense minutes, a transmission reached them, carried on frequencies that shouldn't have been possible in the vacuum of space. The message that filled their communications array was not in any known language, yet somehow, it resonated directly in their minds. Images of destruction and desperation flooded their consciousness, entire civilizations being consumed by a force that devoured not just matter, but consciousness itself. "They're called the Nexari," Reyna found herself saying, the knowledge somehow implanted in her mind. "They're refugees, running from something far worse than anything we've imagined." The Nexari story unfolded in their shared consciousness. They were a species that had evolved in the gas giants of a distant galaxy, developing technology based on quantum entanglement and consciousness manipulation. For millennia, they had been the guardians of their sector, until the emergence of the Void Collective, an entity that consumed entire civilizations, incorporating their knowledge and consciousness into its ever-expanding neural network. "They're not just asking for asylum," Morrison realized, his face pale. "They're warning us." The collective followed them through the quantum wake they created. "It's coming." As if responding to his words, their long-range sensors detected multiple anomalies forming throughout the solar system. The Void Collective hadn't just followed the Nexari, it had surrounded them. "All stations, battle stations," Reyna ordered, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "And get me Admiral Hassan at Earth Command. The Nexari didn't just bring us a warning, they've brought us a war." Within hours, the situation had escalated beyond anything in human military doctrine. The Void Collective's forces weren't ships in any conventional sense, but rather manifestations of consumed technology and consciousness, capable of adapting to any conventional weapon used against them. In the Emergency Council chamber beneath Geneva, Admiral Hassan listened as the Nexari representative, a being of swirling gas contained within a crystalline environment suit, explained the full scope of their enemy's capabilities. "Your species intrigues us," the Nexari communicated, its thoughts carrying undertones of hope and curiosity. "We have observed how you adapted to your harsh world, how you survived extinction-level events, how you turned your vulnerabilities into strengths. Perhaps together, we can find a way to stop the collective." Admiral Hassan exchanged glances with the assembled military and scientific leaders. Humanity had always known first contact was possible, had prepared for both peaceful and hostile scenarios. But this, being thrust into an intergalactic war alongside refugees from another galaxy, against an enemy that defied conventional physics, this was beyond any contingency they had planned for. Yet as Commander Patel reviewed the tactical data from the Artemis station, she noticed something the Nexari had missed. The Void Collective, for all its adaptive capabilities, followed patterns. It evolved along predictable paths, always seeking the most efficient solution to any problem it encountered. "That's it," she whispered, understanding dawning. "They're perfect. Too perfect." She opened a channel to Earth Command. "Admiral, I think I know how we can fight them. We don't need better weapons, we need chaos." We need to be unpredictable, inefficient, human. As the first waves of the Void Collective approached Earth's defensive perimeter, humanity prepared to demonstrate why being perfectly evolved wasn't always an advantage. Sometimes, survival required something messier, something that couldn't be predicted or assimilated. Sometimes, it required being human. Defiance's edge. The quantum forge beneath the Pacific Ocean hummed with unprecedented activity as humanity prepared for its greatest challenge. Dr. Nadia Santos watched her team integrate Nexary consciousness manipulation technology with Earth's experimental quantum defense systems. The integration wasn't elegant, it wasn't meant to be. Your approach is inefficient. The Nexary engineer, a swirling mass of purple and gold gases within its crystalline containment suit, communicated with a mix of confusion and fascination. You deliberately introduce random variables into the quantum matrix. Exactly, Nadia replied, adjusting the neural interface controls. The Void Collective expects perfection. They'll be looking for optimal solutions, perfect symmetry. We're giving them chaos. Above them, in the command center of the underwater facility designated Poseidon's Anvil, Commander Patel reviewed tactical simulations with Admiral Hassan and the Nexary military coordinator, designated Sentinel Prime. The holographic display showed the Void Collective's forces spreading through the outer solar system, consuming automated defense platforms and turning their technology against its creators. Your species continues to surprise us, Sentinel Prime's thoughts resonated. When we first entered your system, we expected to find either allies to save or resources to protect. Instead, we found warriors who think in ways we never imagined. Lieutenant Morrison, now serving as tactical advisor, highlighted a series of seemingly random defense positions throughout the solar system. We've established quantum entanglement relays at these coordinates. They don't follow any strategic pattern because that's exactly what the collective will be looking for. The Nexary military coordinators' gaseous form swirled with increased agitation, their equivalent of excited approval. You're creating a deliberate weakness in your defense network, knowing the enemy will detect and exploit it. And walk right into our trap, Admiral Hassan confirmed, his weathered face showing the first smile in days. But we need your help to make it work. Your quantum consciousness technology is the key to turning their strength against them. In the depths of Neptune's atmosphere, the first major engagement was already underway. The Void Collective had encountered a small fleet of Earth's newest vessels, the Chaos-class destroyers. The ships appeared to be executing standard evasive maneuvers, but their movements held a subtle irregularity that the Collective's predictive algorithms couldn't quite decode. Captain Rena Duwan of the UES Entropy watched as the Collective's forces attempted to adapt to their battle strategy, or rather, their deliberate lack of one. Status of the quantum consciousness transmitters, she demanded. Operating at 70% efficiency, her XO, Commander Thomas Park, reported. The Nexary modifications are holding, but only barely. This whole system feels like it's held together with duct tape and prayers. Good, Rena smiled grimly. That's exactly how we want it. Deploy the gravity mines. The space around Neptune's rings erupted with artificial gravitational distortions. The mines didn't follow any mathematical pattern, they had been deployed by crew members literally throwing them out of airlocks at random intervals. The Void Collective's forces, attempting to analyze and counter the threat, found themselves trapped in an ever-changing maze of gravitational forces. Back at Poseidon's Anvil, Dr. Santos and her Nexary counterpart monitored the engagement. It's working, she breathed, watching as the Collective's units struggled to adapt to the unpredictable battlefield. They can't assimilate what they can't predict. But the victory was short-lived. The Collective, demonstrating its terrifying intelligence, began to split into smaller units, each operating independently rather than as a unified force. They were learning, adapting not just to the weapons being used against them, but to the very concept of chaos itself. Alert the command center, Nadia ordered. The Collective is evolving faster than we anticipated. They're not just trying to counter our tactics, they're trying to understand them. In the command center, Commander Patel watched the tactical display with growing concern. The collective's new strategy was brilliant in its simplicity. Instead of trying to predict chaos, they were embracing it, becoming chaos themselves. "They're using our own strategy against us," Morrison observed, his voice tense. "Each unit is now operating randomly, making them just as unpredictable as we are." But Sentinel Prime's consciousness projected something unexpected, not defeat, but triumph. "You've done it," the Nexari communicated. "You've forced them to abandon their perfect unity, their greatest strength." Admiral Hassan's eyes widened with understanding. "They're not connected anymore," he realized. "Each unit is operating independently, which means they're no longer a collective," Reyna finished. "They've sacrificed their network consciousness to adapt to our tactics. And that's exactly what we needed them to do." She opened a channel to all Earth and Nexari forces. "All units, execute Operation Pandemonium. The enemy has taken our bait. Now let's show them why humans don't just embrace chaos, we master it." As the orders went out, Dr. Santos made the final adjustments to the quantum consciousness transmitters. The real battle was about to begin, and humanity's greatest weakness, its messy, chaotic, imperfect nature, was about to become its greatest strength. The Void Collective had never encountered an enemy that fought like this. They had never needed to. But then again, they had never faced humanity before. Quantum Gambit. Operation Pandemonium began with a whisper rather than a roar. Throughout the solar system, quantum entanglement relays activated in seemingly random patterns, creating a web of intersecting fields that appeared to serve no tactical purpose. The Void Collective's fragmented units, now operating independently, detected the energy signatures but could not discern their intent. On the bridge of the UES Entropy, Captain Dowen watched the tactical display as hundreds of small, autonomous drones launched from concealed positions in the asteroid belt. Each drone carried a modified version of the Nexari consciousness manipulation technology, but with a distinctly human twist. "All ships, maintain position," she ordered. "Let them think we're as confused as they are." The collective units, having abandoned their network consciousness to adapt to human unpredictability, moved to intercept the drones. They expected resistance, strategy, some form of coordinated attack. Instead, they encountered something far more dangerous: human creativity unleashed. In Poseidon's anvil, Dr. Santos monitored the quantum readings with her Nexari colleague. "The drones are broadcasting random fragments of human consciousness," she reported. "Everything from childhood memories to mathematical equations, from dreams to nightmares. We don't understand," the Nexari engineer communicated, its gaseous form shifting in agitation. "How can such cognitive chaos serve as a weapon?" Commander Patel, watching from the command center, allowed herself a grim smile. "Because chaos isn't just our strategy, it's who we are. And we're about to share that chaos with them." The first drone made contact with a collective unit near Mars. Instead of being absorbed or destroyed, it successfully transmitted its payload, the complete sensory experience of a human child's first roller coaster ride, the mix of terror and exhilaration, the irrational joy of controlled fear. The effect was immediate and devastating. The collective unit, designed to absorb and process information in perfect, logical patterns, found itself trying to integrate an experience that defied logical analysis. More drones followed, each carrying fragments of human consciousness specifically chosen for their emotional complexity and apparent irrationality. Multiple collective units showing signs of cognitive disruption, Lieutenant Morrison reported from his tactical station. "They're trying to process the data but can't reconcile the emotional components." Admiral Hassan, coordinating the operation from Earth Command, received similar reports from across the solar system. "They've spent eons absorbing species that evolved toward perfection," he observed. "But humanity? We evolved to embrace imperfection, to find strength in our contradictions." The Void Collective units began to exhibit increasingly erratic behavior. Some attempted to retreat, others launched uncoordinated attacks, while others simply ceased movement entirely, overwhelmed by the complexity of human consciousness. But victory wouldn't come easily. A group of larger collective units, recognizing the threat, began adapting in an unexpected way. Instead of trying to process the emotional data, they started reflecting it back, amplified and distorted. Warning, Sentinel Prime's thoughts carried an edge of alarm. The collective is weaponizing the transmitted consciousness patterns. The effect rippled through the human fleet. Crew members on ships near the reflecting units began experiencing intense emotional feedback, fear, rage, joy, sorrow, all amplified beyond normal human tolerance. Medical emergency reports coming in from all sectors, Commander Park announced, his voice strained. Our own emotions are being used against us. Dr. Santos rushed to modify the quantum consciousness transmitters. They've turned our chaos into a feedback loop, she explained to her Nexary colleague. We need to change tactics before our crews are overwhelmed. But Captain Bowen saw something different in the tactical display. No, she countermanded. This is exactly what we need. They're not just reflecting our consciousness, they're beginning to experience it themselves. She opened a channel to all ships. All units, increase consciousness transmission to maximum power. Focus all drones on the units attempting reflection. Don't fight the emotional feedback, embrace it. Commander Patel understood immediately. They've abandoned their network consciousness to fight us, she explained to the stunned Nexary representatives. Now they're experiencing human consciousness individually, without their collective to filter and process it. The strategy was dangerous, possibly suicidal. Human crews would be exposed to devastating emotional feedback, but the collective units would be experiencing true individual consciousness for the first time in their existence. Remind them what it means to be alive, Reyna broadcast to her forces. Remind them what it means to feel fear, hope, love, anger, not as data to be processed, but as the fundamental chaos that makes us human. The quantum consciousness transmitters reached maximum power, flooding the battlefield with the raw, unfiltered experience of human emotion and thought. Ship crews fought through the psychic backlash, their training and determination holding them together even as their minds were awash with amplified feelings. In the chaos of that moment, something unprecedented occurred. The collective units, overwhelmed by the intensity of individual consciousness, began to change. Some shut down entirely, unable to process the flood of emotions. Others, in a desperate attempt to understand what they were experiencing, started trying to communicate. We're receiving transmissions, Morrison announced, his voice filled with disbelief. The collective units, they're asking questions. They want to understand everything. What laughter is. Why humans cry. How we bear the weight of individual consciousness. The battle had become something else entirely, not a fight for survival, but a desperate struggle for understanding between two fundamentally different forms of existence. And in that struggle, humanity's greatest weakness had become its most powerful weapon, the beautiful, terrible complexity of the individual human soul. Breaking point. The quantum storms raged across the solar system, a tempest of consciousness and emotion that threatened to tear reality apart. In Poseidon's anvil, warning klaxons blared as the facility's sensors detected critical instabilities in the quantum consciousness network. Dr. Santos stared at her readings in horror. The feedback loop is growing exponentially, she reported, her voice hoarse. We're not just affecting the collective units anymore, we're creating a cascading resonance through the quantum fabric of space itself. The Nexary engineer's crystalline containment suit vibrated with alarm. The consciousness bridge between our species and the collective is becoming unstable. If it collapses, the psychic backlash could devastate both sides. Admiral Hassan received similar reports from ships across the battlefield. The emotional feedback was taking its toll on human crews. Some had fallen into catatonic states, others experienced vivid hallucinations. The Void collective units weren't faring any better, their attempts to process human consciousness had created a kind of psychic chain reaction. "We need to shut it down," Commander Park urged from the UES Entropy's bridge. His hands shook as he fought against the waves of foreign emotions washing through his mind. The human mind wasn't meant to handle this kind of cognitive amplification. But Captain Dowen saw something in the chaos that others missed. "Look at the collective units that are trying to communicate," she pointed out. "They're not just asking questions anymore, they're experiencing genuine emotions. Fear, curiosity, even empathy." Commander Patel, fighting through her own mental strain, studied the tactical displays. The battlefield had become a swirling mass of quantum energy, with human ships, Nexary vessels, and collective units all caught in the maelstrom. But within that chaos, patterns were emerging, not the rigid, predictable patterns of the collective's original behavior, but something new, something almost organic. "They're not just learning about emotions," she realized. "They're learning how to feel them naturally. The quantum consciousness bridge isn't just transmitting our experiences, it's teaching them how to have their own." Sentinel Prime's thoughts carried a mix of awe and concern. Such rapid evolutionary change should be impossible. The collective has spent eons perfecting its unified consciousness. To develop individual awareness in mere hours. "That's exactly why it's working," Lieutenant Morrison interjected, wiping blood from his nose, a side effect of the intense psychic pressure. "They've never experienced imperfect, individual growth. They don't know how to handle it." Dr. Santos suddenly straightened, her eyes wide with realization. "The quantum instabilities, they're not just a side effect. They're a symptom of the collective units developing their own unique consciousness patterns." She turned to her Nexary colleague. "We need to stabilize the quantum bridge, not shut it down. Give them time to complete the transformation. The human crews won't survive that long," Admiral Hassan objected. "The psychic feedback is already pushing them beyond safe limits." Captain Dowen's voice cut through the debate. "Then we give them a choice." She opened a channel to all Earth vessels. "All crews, this is Captain Dowen. We have a chance to end this, not just the battle, but the very nature of the collective itself. But it means enduring the psychic storm a little longer. I won't order anyone to take that risk. All ships are free to withdraw to safe distance." The response came immediately. Not a single ship broke formation. In the quantum forge beneath the Pacific, Dr. Santos and her team worked frantically to stabilize the consciousness bridge, using the Nexary technology in ways it was never designed for. The crystalline matrices hummed with power as they channeled the flood of human consciousness, emotion, and experience. "Multiple collective units are approaching critical cognitive transformation," Morrison reported, his voice weak but determined. "The individual consciousness patterns are becoming self-sustaining." Commander Patel watched as the largest collective units, the ones that had been reflecting human emotions, suddenly ceased their attack. Their structures began to shift, the perfect symmetry of their forms breaking down into more chaotic, individualized patterns. "They're choosing to change," Sentinel Prime communicated, its gaseous form swirling with excitement. "Not adapting out of necessity, but willingly embracing individual consciousness." The transformation rippled through the collective forces. Units that had been mindless drones in a vast network began to exhibit unique behaviors, their actions no longer coordinated but expressing individual choices and reactions. But the victory came at a devastating cost. Across the human fleet, crew members collapsed from the mental strain. Medical bays filled with those whose minds had been pushed beyond their limits. The quantum consciousness bridge had forced them to experience not just their own emotions, but the birth pangs of an entirely new form of consciousness. On the UES Entropy's bridge, Captain Dowen gripped her command chair as reality seemed to twist around her. "Hold on," she whispered, though whether to her crew or herself, she wasn't sure. "Just a little longer." The quantum storm reached its peak, a moment where human consciousness and collective awareness balanced on a knife's edge. In that crystalline instant, both sides glimpsed something profound, the possibility of existence that was neither perfectly ordered nor completely chaotic, but a harmony of individual minds choosing to work together. Then, like a wave breaking on a shore, the storm began to subside. The collective units, forever changed by their exposure to human consciousness, ceased their attacks entirely. The quantum bridge stabilized, no longer carrying the overwhelming flood of emotional feedback but a gentler exchange of awareness between two very different forms of life. In the aftermath, as medical teams treated the injured and engineers assessed the damage, humanity had achieved something unprecedented. They had not destroyed their enemy but transformed it, using the very chaos and imperfection that the collective had once dismissed as weakness. The price had been high, but the reward was beyond imagination, the birth of a new form of consciousness, one that understood both the strength of unity and the power of individual thought. The question now was what this transformed collective would choose to become. Dawn of Unity. 3 weeks after the quantum storm subsided, Commander Patel stood in a specially constructed chamber aboard the International Space Station. Before her, suspended in a containment field, floated a representative of the transformed collective, no longer a mindless drone, but an entity that had chosen to call itself First Dawn. The being's form still shifted and flowed like liquid metal, but now it moved with purpose and individual expression, its patterns unique rather than perfectly symmetrical. Next to Reina, Dr. Santos monitored the quantum consciousness bridge, now refined to allow clear communication without the overwhelming emotional feedback of before. "We understand now," First Dawn communicated, its thoughts carrying subtle undertones of wonder and regret. "For eons, we sought perfection through unity, absorbing all we encountered to add to our collective knowledge. We never realized that in doing so, we were diminishing ourselves." Admiral Hassan, attending via hologram from the recovering Poseidon's Anvil facility, nodded slowly. "Unity doesn't require uniformity," he observed. "That's something humanity learned through countless struggles." The Nexary representative, Sentinel Prime, had remained on the station to witness this historic meeting. "Your transformation is unprecedented," its thoughts projected. "You have become something entirely new, neither the consuming force you were, nor simply an imitation of human consciousness." First Dawn's form rippled in acknowledgement. "We are learning to be individuals while maintaining a connection to each other. It is challenging, chaotic, beautiful." The entity's surface displayed patterns that seemed almost like expression. "Many of us are struggling with the concept of individual identity, of making choices that affect only ourselves rather than the collective." Captain Delwyn, recently promoted to fleet captain after her actions during the battle, smiled slightly. "Welcome to the human experience. We've been wrestling with those questions since we first gained consciousness." Dr. Santos studied her readings with fascination. "The quantum signatures from the transformed collective units show incredible diversity now. Each one is developing its own unique consciousness pattern while maintaining a voluntary connection to the others. It's like a network where each node chooses how and when to connect." Not unlike human society, Commander Park observed from his position near the chamber's exit. He had recovered from the psychic strain but, like many who had endured the quantum storm, now reported experiencing occasional flashes of insight into others' emotions, a lasting side effect of the consciousness bridge. First Dawn's form shifted closer to the containment field's edge. "We wish to make amends for our actions, both to humanity and to all the species we consumed in our quest for perfection. Though we cannot restore what was lost, we can help prevent such losses in the future." "How?" Lieutenant Morrison asked, voicing the question on everyone's mind. "We retain the knowledge of all we absorbed, but now we understand it differently. We see the value in diversity, in imperfection, in individual growth. We offer this knowledge freely, not as conquerors or consumers, but as equals seeking to learn and share." Admiral Hassan exchanged glances with the Nexary representative. The implications were staggering: access to the scientific and cultural knowledge of countless civilizations, freely offered by beings who now understood the responsibility that came with such knowledge. There will need to be safeguards, Commander Patel stated firmly. Protocols for sharing information, ways to ensure it's used responsibly. Of course, First Dawn agreed. We would expect nothing less from those who taught us the value of individual choice and responsibility. Perhaps. The entity hesitated, displaying an almost human uncertainty. Perhaps humanity would consider serving as mediators between us and other species. You understand both unity and individuality in ways we are only beginning to grasp. Captain Dowan stepped forward. You're asking humanity to help you reintegrate into the galaxy, not as conquerors, but as partners. Yes. Your species has shown us that true strength lies not in perfection, but in the ability to grow, to change, to embrace chaos while maintaining connection. We would learn from you, even as we share what we know. The implications of this request rippled through the chamber. Humanity, one of the younger spacefaring species, being asked to guide beings that had once consumed entire civilizations. It was both an honor and an enormous responsibility. Dr. Santos checked her instruments one final time. The quantum consciousness patterns are stable, she reported. Whatever they've become, it's sustainable. They're not going to revert to their previous state. Admiral Hassan straightened, his hologram flickering slightly. Then let's begin. Not as conquerors or conquered, not as perfect beings or imperfect ones, but as individuals choosing to work together. That's always been humanity's greatest strength, not that we're perfect, but that we never stop trying to be better. First Dawn's form created a pattern that somehow conveyed both solemnity and hope. We offer a proposition, let us establish a council, not of uniform minds seeking perfection, but of diverse consciousness working toward understanding. Let Earth be its foundation, for you have shown us that true unity comes not from enforced conformity, but from the free choice to connect while remaining uniquely oneself. As the discussions continued, Commander Patel looked out the station's window at Earth below. Humanity had faced its greatest challenge not with superior firepower or advanced technology, but with the very qualities that made them human, their chaos, their emotions, their imperfection. In doing so, they hadn't just saved themselves, they had helped birth a new form of consciousness that understood the value of both unity and individuality. The dawn of a new era was breaking across the solar system, one where the strength of civilization would be measured not by its perfection, but by its ability to embrace diversity, change, and the beautiful chaos of individual consciousness joined in willing cooperation. The void between stars was no longer empty. It was filled with possibility.